Good evening, my friends, and welcome to Crow Chat this evening. It is a joy indeed to be with you on this beautiful, at least it is in Maryland, night, Monday night. Tonight at Crow Chat, I hope, and I'll say we hope, to have an environment where we can learn some things tonight, and not just to learn them, but to do them. I talked yesterday morning about not just learning something, but doing it, and we were talking about prayer. And tonight is a good lesson on how to learn how to lead better. I wish I'd had this lesson myself. I wish I'd taught it to myself earlier in my life. But in Crow Chat tonight, we're going to be able to develop some understanding, I think, and I hope that we'll do so in a way that you might learn something new and might learn how to become a more effective person. Not just in spiritual things, but in relating to people and loving people. Crow Chat, the whole purpose of this is to have an environment that would be enriching and spiritually enlarging for our souls as we explore these different topics. Louise, it's good to have you here from Mississippi tonight, and three others are watching. We're glad you're here this evening. This is the 127th edition of Crow Chat, 2.5 years in. And today we're going to be in Ecclesiastes 10. Now, all of Scripture is the study of human behavior. We might not think that because we may think it's only about the divine. Charlie, great to have you tonight. But it's a study of human behavior. How do people respond to God? How did people hear God? How did people learn how to walk with Him? How did people meet Jesus? How did Jesus become human? Jesus is the human one. It's a study of human behavior. But in doing that, as we look at humanity, as we understand the human, we understand the divine. And that's a wonderful lesson, that God is always talking to us all around us here. You can see the evidence of the Creator in my backyard as you see the budding of the redbud tree. Rick Hope, well, great to have you tonight, my brother. But as we come tonight, we're going to look at chapter 10, and other than 4 verses in here, verses 5, 6, and 7, 3 verses, I guess, this sounds almost like Proverbs more than it does Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, has been all its vanity and different statements where the Solomon and the writer is saying, I don't know why we're even living this life. It's empty and it's foolish. But Solomon does tonight a Proverbs thing of contrasting foolish and wise behavior. He's saying one can make a foolish decision or a wise decision and choices. One can pursue wisdom. One can pursue folly. That much is in our lap. That's not done to us. That's not done for us. That's what we choose to pursue. You and I choose where we go, the direction we head. So let's get a few leadership lessons tonight. I think we're going to hit 13. So let's listen up as we move right on through here tonight. The first starts off as a very interesting phrase. As dead flies cause even a bottle of perfume to stink, so a little foolishness spoils great wisdom and honor. Somebody said I'm frozen. I don't think I am. I think that may be their receiver. So we're just going to keep going, okay? But what we see, leaders, especially good ones, by the way, they're exemplified by perfume with great wisdom and honor, can be undone by foolish thinking, foolish behavior. Solomon is a poster child for that. The fly doesn't get into the bottle before the perfume is made. We need to keep that in mind. The great fragrance has been carefully prepared. It's expensive to do it. The fly gets in by accident. It either comes in by oversight or it comes in by some way it gets in. And what that tells us about leadership is that foolishness, Sybil, good to have you tonight, ruins a good leader. How many ministers have done really well and done much good and get done in by an act of folly, an indiscretion, an abusive position, a demeaning attitude that comes from an earned position? I mean, they had earned it by character and by living well and by leading well, and all of a sudden it gets blown away. May God keep us from those type of things, but how many have we seen do that more than we want to know? How many politicians have we seen that are lauded for service? Then they're ruined by acts of folly. If I look back in history for us, Watergate comes to mind. A paranoia and a sense of insecurity and revenge brings down a skillful politician. Richard Nixon was. You think of Chappaquiddick, and there is a stain on a notable life. Edward Kennedy served many years in our Senate and comes from a family of public servants. That family has a lineage of that, and he has a stain on an otherwise notable life. Those are deeply woven into the record in the past, so they don't sting so much today, but I could give you very clear examples of present day people right now who have lost a whole lot because they let a fly get into their perfume and they acted very foolishly. So the leadership lesson that we have here is that there's never a good time to lower your character standard, ever. There's never a good time to lower it. When we make a statement, it won't matter. It's just a little thing. Character is a big thing. Character in many ways is everything. If Jesus Christ were not fully obedient to the Father, a little bit of obedience or a little bit of disobedience would have undone everything that he was doing. We need to understand that in our life. And so, there's never a good time to lower your character standard. That's lesson 1. In verse 2, it says, a wise person chooses the right road, but a fool takes the wrong one. Listen, direction can be the wise or foolish. We tend to think of accomplishments, but what has a person done? But I would say this. I think direction may be a more telling register of a person than their accomplishments. Instead of asking what they've done, ask where they headed. Where were they going? What were they pursuing? Sometimes the wise way is the hard way. Yes. Sometimes the good road is a hard road. And accomplishments may not be so many. They may not be so big, but they could be far more important. Who do we know that did that very thing? Jesus Christ was directed to the cross. He said, that's my goal. On the third day, I reached my goal. And he's talking about the cross and the resurrection. It was wise. It was hard. It seemingly was foolish, but no. Now, by the way, Jesus was directed by the cross. Judas was directed by the silver. And you see, it was the foolish way, the easy way. I can do this. I can pick up a quick buck. And it was not the right way to go. You see, the character lesson we have here, the leadership lesson, choose wisely when you chart the direction of your life. You see, it doesn't matter so much what you've done. It really does matter where you're headed. And I'm not talking about like to heaven, to the sweet by and by. I'm talking, what is the direction of your life? When people would say, they're so-and-so, this is what they're known for. They're known for direction. And you see, that's why a good leader can blow it by going the wrong direction. All of a sudden you go like, well, that doesn't fit. Direction is huge. So we learn very easily. Fools and wise people choose a direction. So the lesson is, choose wisely the direction of your life. Verse 3 says you can identify fools by the way they walk down the street. You say, what kind of leadership lesson is that? Well, I would just say this. Pay attention to what a person does. Pay attention to where they go, what they do. If they're doing it, whatever they're doing, they're telling you something. You can see who a person is by seeing what they're doing, how they do it, and where they're headed. You can tell a whole lot about a person. A leadership lesson there is discernment increases if you pay attention to people. You can understand a whole lot. As a minister, you hear people want to often say, let me tell you what I've done, where I've been, especially when you're just meeting somebody, and they try to tell you a significant story or something like that. And you can see when somebody's insecure, trying to be more secure. You can see when they're trying to make a winning way. You can tell a person by the way they walk. Some of the most impassioned statements I've heard people say about their own spirituality were spoken by people who were living a hypocritical life, and it comes out in time. So I encourage you, discernment increases as you watch and pay attention to who people are. In verse 4, if your boss is angry at you, don't quit. A quiet spirit can overcome even great mistakes. This is a classic message from the Sermon on the Mount. Don't retaliate in kind. You see, leaders sometimes get it wrong. And if you're not the leader, somebody gets it wrong, and you want to just go back at it. I learned that very easily being on staff at one time in a former church, that that my pastor just really didn't have it all together on some things. But you know, it was important for me to respect the position, to be loyal at that point, and to walk wisely. And even when people were encouraging you not to, loyalty is always a good quality. So it says, you know, if your boss is angry, don't quit. Don't, because a quiet spirit overcomes great mistakes. You can respect the position while not approving the behavior. It takes wisdom to know when to call out that behavior or when to let it ride. You see, we are not all to be critics and to point out everybody's flaws. There's no wisdom in that. But there's a time for you to say to somebody, that's really hurting your effectiveness. That's not a wise thing to do. This is not saying here, a quiet spirit can overcome great wrongs. And what that's saying is, if you can help somebody overcome a negative thing in their life, you can do a whole lot of good there. But you don't do it by yelling and combating. You do that by making a good appeal. So the lesson you have there is really a lesson I learned from my mom. It's not so much what you do, it's how you do what you do that often makes the difference. I'm so grateful for my mom teaching me that lesson. She taught me many good lessons, but that's one of the wise ones, especially for a pastor. People will forgive your mistakes if they know that you love them, and if they know that you made a mistake, not that you did something intentionally. I've put my foot in my mouth way too many times. I have made mistakes in forgetting things that I needed to remember. And if people know you love them, the way you do things allows you to be able to walk with people well. So the leadership lesson is, it's not so much what you do, it's how you do what you do. So make that appeal that way. Now verses 5, 6, and 7 is where he kind of takes an interlude. This is where Solomon reverts to Ecclesiastes' character and conduct. You know, and here's what it says. I've seen a great evil under the sun. There's that phrase, under the sun. You don't say that anywhere else in this chapter. Under the sun. Kings and rulers make a grave mistake when they give great authority to foolish people and low positions to people of proven worth. I've even seen servants riding horseback like princes, and I've seen princes walking like servants. Now Solomon is saying a leader makes a great mistake when they give the wrong things to the wrong people. Yes. Evaluate wisely. Don't oversell a poor performer. Don't oversell undersell and short sell the excellent. It is so easy for us. It's easy for me because I will often use superlatives with my encouraging spirit. I'll say things that are maybe too much, and I've got to watch that. That's something that's a little bit of a rebuke for me here. But the thing that we learn is character and conduct matter. Evaluate it well. Jim Collins, the writer of the book called Good to Great, he's written several good books on leadership, but he says the key lesson is to get the right people on the bus and have them in the right seat. You know, it's important. You don't need to put somebody by the door that doesn't know how to handle a door. Often you have the right kind of person, but they need to be in the right kind of position. I've not been good at that. I'm not a good organizational leader, and others have helped me on this lesson far better than I can do myself. But I see the need for the lesson. And what we see is that a leader, it doesn't matter if it's a president or whoever, when you appoint somebody that shouldn't be in a position, it really turns out not to be a good lesson. Okay, so the leadership lesson, character and conduct matter. It's not just character, it's character and conduct. In verse 8, when you dig a well, you might fall in. When you demolish an old wall, you could be bitten by a snake. When you work in a quarry, stones might fall and crush you. When you chop wood, there's danger with each stroke of your axe. Now Solomon, he goes back to the like a Proverbs type, and he lists 4 levels of risk. But they also are 4 levels of reward. There's a well, he said you might fall into it. If you break through a wall, that's kind of like you're working in your yard in a garden wall, or it could be a basement wall. You might get bit by a snake. If you work in a quarry, you could get crushed. If you cut wood with an axe, you can cut yourself. Now listen, there's risks to everything in life. You make a plan, it may not work out. Yeah. You start a new job, it may not be what you thought. You have a dream relationship, and it may turn into a nightmare. A great sport talent can be cut short by injury. Life is full of risk because life is a risk. You can spell life, R-I-S-K. I can die today. I'm not intending to. I'm not planning to. I could die today, but I might not. There's acceptable risk. So don't just go through life without paying attention to what you're doing and how you do it. Remember my illustration yesterday, starting the message about my working in the steel plant. Yeah, I cut corners. That's not wise to do. Maximizing risk. Though, if you're always maximizing risk, it will paralyze you. You'll be afraid to do anything. We could have a wreck if we get in a car. Yes, you could, but you also can get to your destination. The plane can crash, but it also can take you home. The well, think about it, might refresh people for generations, like Jacob's well. The wall can protect and keep you warm. The stones might build you a house or a wall around a city. The wood will provide heat and the ability to cook. Now, how does that work in faith matters? Okay, let's talk about it. You can spend time alone with God, or you can spend time with others. What you gonna do? There's a risk in either one. You can pray for others, or you can share for others. What's the leadership lesson? The leadership lesson is this: balance wisely your work and risk, and your profit and your loss. Realize that all of one thing is not a good thing. We have to realize God made us to be in this world that we live in. We are a part of it. And we can go manic on any one level, but that's really not wise, and it's not good thinking, and it's also not good for living. What God would be saying to you and to me is make sure that you balance work and risk and reward, profit or loss. And there's times, I wish in business, people who forecast things would not be so negative and when they do massive layoffs. And they go like, we just got to make more money here for this segment of our company, but the ones who do the most work, they're the ones most at risk. I don't think that's a wise way to go. It's not good in a church for a church to build things just for, meaning a ministry or an idea or even to teach toward people who you think could take you farther. We teach to all people. We have to reach out to everyone. Everyone matters. So you have to balance risk and reward. That's what faith is about. Peter had to say, when Jesus said, get out on the water, Peter had to say, there's a risk there, but there's a reward. And be wise. Don't always be afraid of risk. It's almost like Solomon is there. In verse 10, using a dull axe requires great strength. So sharpen the blade. That's the value of wisdom. It helps you succeed. I really do like the way the New Living Translation covers these verses here. It seems so simple that it doesn't, sure, sharpen your axe. But try to apply that across disciplines. You see, when we get going in our work, we get on a roll. I know I do this, and we don't want to stop, even if rest is needed. It's not a bad thing to take a break. Maximum effort is measured effort. It's not just all out all the time. Time is saved and time is maximized by taking time to sharpen your axe. Now you can keep beating it harder and harder, but it doesn't mean it's going to be better or you're going to be better or you're going to have more wood chopped. The principle of the Sabbath is at play here. We all need to stop. We need to take a break and rest. We need to reflect. And we need to use something, or we need to give gratitude. Wise effort will beat strong effort every day. Wisdom is better than strength. I know the story of David and Goliath. Goliath had him beat every day on strength. David had the wise choice of saying, I'm going to honor God with my life. So the leadership lesson for us there is take time to sharpen your tools. Yeah. Grow people, not just profit, if you're in the business life. Grow people, not just profit. If you're in ministry life, grow people. not just what they can produce. We're lovers of people to develop them. I'm so grateful Jesus didn't pass us by. He says, no, Dan, you're worth it. Rick, you're worth it. Sybil, you're worth it. Charlie, you're worth it. Becky, you're worth it. Louise, you're worth it. He didn't say, well, I'm going to go to the next one. No, he gives us what we need. He sharpens our hearts, and he wants to grow us. Leadership lesson, take time to sharpen your tools. Be aware of what you have and grow people, not just reward or profit. Verse 11 says, if a snake bites before you charm it, what's the use of having a snake charmer or being a snake charmer? Now this one doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make a lot of sense to Westerners at all. The picture's humorous though, but the lesson's profound. Okay, so my mother would not like, Louise would not like this illustration. She don't like snakes at all. But listen to what he's saying. He's saying timing matters as much as training. An asset is a liability unless it has proper training and timing. That's what I did yesterday in that sermon illustration again. Time spent giving good instruction saves time in the long run. It saves talent. It saves a lot of things. Coach John Wooden was the coach of the UCLA Bruins. Won 11 national championships, the all-time record. But the thing that's really funny, on the first practice he had with his team every year, he would teach them how to put on socks. And he took 30 minutes to show them how to put their socks on. And he would roll it, he would take it out, he would say, you rolled up your foot, you don't have any play in it. And here's why he said he did that. He said blisters lose ball games. And he said if you don't put a sock on properly, you will get blisters. And an athlete is no good without feet. They have to be able to go. And so Wooden spent that time. Now he was also a strong Christian, and he was always building in life lessons in what he taught. But I thought that was a fascinating thing, that he gets these great athletes to come to UCLA, and he spends time with them, teaching them how to put on socks. Something they say, we know what we're doing. He said most people don't do it very well. So, maximize time and assets by giving time for training before you deploy. You don't want to send somebody out that's not trained. Well, Jesus sent out the 12, and they'd been with him. It says after they'd been with him, he sent them out. He didn't send them out not knowing what they were doing. He said, you know how to pray. You know what to do with the demon when it comes. You know how to heal. He says, go out and do the things you've seen me do. I've taught you how. Go out and do those things. And that's what they, in fact, did. Now, verse 12 and 13, 14, 15 go together. Wise words bring approval. Fools are destroyed by their own words. Fools base their thoughts on foolish assumptions, so their conclusions will be wicked madness. They chatter on and on. No one really knows what's going to happen. No one can predict the future. Fools are so exhausted by a little work, they can't even find their way home. Now he goes off on a diatribe here, digging deep in the way that fools bring chaos, ruin, folly, waste, confusion, and exhaustion, that they can't even get home to life. Now this is true on a personal, group, or societal level. Don't suffer foolish thinking. Don't suffer foolish behavior. This is where we can interpret some of Jesus' apparently very harsh words. When he said to Peter, get behind me, Satan, after Peter had said to him, Lord, you're not going to go to the cross and you're not going to die. Surely not you, Lord. It will not happen. He said, that's not, Peter, that's not a good thought. That's foolish. That's why I've come. You see, when he gave the woes to the Pharisees, he said, you're like a whitewashed tomb. He said, you're all good on the outside, but you're rotten on the inside. He said, change your behavior. He was giving a harsh word, but he was saying, don't be foolish. See, when you call out foolish thinking, what you're doing, you're calling out thinking that is stopped. See, a fool thinks they know. The fool said in his heart, there is no God, and he doesn't think there is a God. There's no standard. The fool says he knows. Foolish thinking is one that ceases learning. We talked about that yesterday. The hypocrite will not lay down the ruse. They just keep holding on to it. They keep pretending. Foolish words destroy, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Verse 12 and 13 talk about that. You can't have a good conclusion from a bad assumption. Simple law of logic. But you can't have a good conclusion if you have bad assumptions on the front. You see, bad assumptions create endless speculation, a lack of discretion, a lack of direction, and ending up in chaos and exhaustion, and you fall short of every goal. Now, for a leader, that is critical, because unless it's halted, foolish labor will exhaust and keep you from coming to where you want to go. See, the leadership lesson, what is it? Stress and enforce clear, wise, productive communication. Communication is a key thing. And it's very important to have a good message. I've not done that enough in my ministry, in my life. It's important for us to make sure that we're clear and on point. It's a wise thing to do because people will think logically to the wrong conclusion. So the lesson, make sure you have good clarity and productive communication that is wise. Verse 16, he starts giving he slides a little bit and he's going to give 3 more lessons at the end. It says, what sorrow for the land if it's ruled by a servant. Now, one translation says by a child. And that's really what the Hebrew says, by a child. The land whose leaders feast in the morning. Happy is the land whose king is a noble leader, and whose leaders feast at the proper time to gain strength for their work, not to get drunk. Now Solomon is clearly giving a contrast of mature and immature leadership. Immature leaders have no sense of priority. They feast in the morning. The word for servant, I said, is a baby, and the idea is it's infantile thinking. An infantile thinking indicates a selfish, me-first attitude. The noble leader is mature. They're thinking. They're community-minded. It's for the common good. There's a time to feast. There's a time to fuel up, to have strength to do the work, and not to party or lose control. Families in our country, this one we live in right now, is suffering because this is not realized. That nobility, the lesson is this, nobility, a high standard, is required to have a good effort. You don't get excellence if you don't have a high standard. And that's true whether in personal character or in community effect. It's important that we have a high standard, that we tell our young people, that we educate toward a high, noble goal, not the lowest common denominator. In a church, you don't want to be a part of a church that says it doesn't matter how you live. It doesn't matter how you think. It doesn't matter how you talk. And no, it does matter. And it's not because you're keeping score. It's not because you're saying, hey, you've got to do this in a legalistic mind. No, we want to honor Christ. It does matter how we live. We want Jesus to shine through. So Solomon, after giving these leadership lessons, he closes his section by going back to things like Proverbs again, these thoughts. Verse 18, laziness leads to a sagging roof. Idleness leads to a leaky house. Now, this is a very simple thing to see, that neglect and sloth will collapse your house. It'll take the covering. Now, by the way, your house may be this body that we have here. We are a tabernacle, a temple. It will take the covering off your life if you give neglect. You'll have no protection from leakage. It's sad when a person leaks, that the good things flow out of them and they soak in what is bad. If you've never had to deal with a leaky roof, be thankful. Be grateful, because it's hard to find where the leak is. You can see whether it's coming through, but it doesn't mean that's where the leak is at the top. It takes a lot of work to do that. And what's the leadership lesson on this? And this is, to me, this is a fantastic lesson. That regular maintenance is better than emergency repair. That's a lesson I need to learn regularly in my life mechanically and around the house. You can let things go too long. Regular maintenance is better. It's not more fun, but if you're diligently regular, it's better than an emergency repair. My dad lived that lesson out in his life. Now, what does that do for us spiritually? Let's just think about that. Regular maintenance, better than emergency repair. What does Proverbs say? Watch over your heart with all diligence. Out of it flow the issues of life. That's chapter 4 and verse 23 of Proverbs. Watch over your heart carefully. Pay close attention to it. Don't neglect it. You'll get your lid ripped off, as it were, and you'll be open to all kinds of dangers. There's another thing about the flock, and that could be about your family or whatever, but it says in chapter 27, verse 23, it says, know well the condition of your flocks. Be aware of what people are going through, the people in your organization, the people in your family. Do you know what your wife is going through, or your husband? Or if you're single, do you know what your coworkers are going through? We need to understand those things. It's important. People appreciate when people are caring for them, and you find great joy when you can help somebody else maximize their life. So regular maintenance is better than emergency repair. As a pastor, I can guarantee you I know that. One of the worst things that can happen is when somebody says, oh, I know I should have, and all of a sudden you're dealing with emergency repair. That is not a fun time. Verse 19, a party gives laughter, wine gives happiness, and money gives everything. I don't know how that reads in another translation. Becky, do you have one here? That would be verse 19. She chose not to say it. Men prepare a meal for enjoyment, wine makes life merry, and money is the answer to everything. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is where Solomon, I think, goes off the rails. I just want to say right there, stop it, Saul. Call him Saul for short, because we're buddies. Extravagance, excess, and excitement don't give everything. No, they may feel like it. What those things do, extravagance, excitement, they take everything. Yeah. Charlie is saying a feast is made for laughter, makes life merry. Okay, and money, yeah, is the answer to everything. Yeah, he's reading what Becky did in the American Standard. But you see, those things take everything. They don't give. Check the leadership lesson there. Be alert when you watch the news. Be alert when you watch. Here's a movie I don't recommend, but if you really want to see how this plays out in a horrible way in life, watch The Wolf of Wall Street. If you either read the book or I haven't read the book, but I did see the movie. It shows what excessive living does, and it will ruin and corrupt your soul. So money doesn't provide everything. Happiness, wine doesn't give you everything. In moderation, those things do. And that's the thing to learn there, is be careful on what you allow to be dominant in your life. Then the last lesson's coming up in verse 20. Never make light of the king, even in your own thoughts. And don't make fun of the powerful, even in your own bedroom. For a little bird might deliver your message and tell them what you said. Louise, I think you've told me that. A little bird told me. And that was a phrase my mom would often use when I didn't know how she knew what I was doing that was wrong. But a little bird told her. That comes from this proverb, which is in Ecclesiastes. Now remember who's writing this, Solomon. Don't forget, he's not writing as a writer of Scripture. He is a king. He's the king. And those around him were considered the powerful. Attitudes are conveyed in action and language. And what he's saying is, always be aware of your place, always respect your place, and respect the place of others. Solomon did not do this. But this is, he's one of those contradictory characters that just really kind of drive us nuts when you see all the way he squandered what God had given him. Treat all people with respect. Solomon, of all people, should have known how to do that. Generally, good Twitter bird, little I like it. But Solomon, of all people, because it was given to him, he should have known to take care of people he didn't. Matter of fact, he enslaved his own people, which God had told him never, ever do that. He went down to Egypt for help. God said, don't do that. The attitude of our heart has a way of making itself known in our words, in our thinking, and words have a way of coming out of our mouth, and they come out of control. Be careful. It's hard to be reminded when somebody says to you, now you said this, and you realize, oh, you're right. Especially when you didn't mean it, or you didn't mean it to be heard by others. Confidentiality is important. It's important to know how to listen in life. So what's the lesson to learn? Be respectful to all. Be respectful to all, and reflect that in how you speak and how you act. Well, there's 13 leadership lessons we looked at tonight, and I hope that you found some things there that might be helpful to you, that might guide you, that might direct, and we'll find some wisdom there. God bless you, and as we continue into the month of April, I hope your taxes are paid. Be grateful, those of us that had to pay taxes, and we all do. Be grateful we have a country where you can have freedom to earn, to grow, and I'm grateful for our country. And do what the epistle, the apostle tells us. Pray for our leaders, that we might live a quiet and peaceable life. God bless you guys. You're good. I appreciate being with you tonight. Until next time, God is good all the time, and all the time, God is good.